Hello students. Today we are going to see about the remaining part of Stephen Hawking. Okay? In the earlier video we have seen about Stephen Hawking's condition and the diagnosis of ALS. Okay? Now let's see the remaining part. Page number 117. They took a muscle sample from my arm, stuck electrodes into me, and injected some radio opaque fluid into my spine and watched it going up and down with x rays. As they tilted the bed, he once said, after all that, they didn't tell me what I had, except that it was not multiple sclerosis and that I was an atypical case. Let's see in detail. They means what? Doctors. Doctors took a muscle sample from my arm. That means the doctors took the muscle sample with the help of the needle from Stephen Hawking's arm. Then stuck electrodes into his body, okay, and injected some radio opaque fluid into his spine so that they can understand what's going on in his body and what was the problem, and watched it means with the help of that radio opaque fluid. Opaque means opaque, not able to, actually opaque means this is used in medical. Okay, so what is given here, let's see that radio opaque fluid is used for what, to see, means the doctors watched it going up and down with the help of the x-rays. Okay, and with the help of that they found out what was going on as they tilted the bed. He once said, who said here, the here Stephen Hawking said, after all that they didn't tell me what I had, except that it was not multiple sclerosis. Means here doctors only said him that he was what, that it was not, means whatever the problem he had, it was not the multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis means what, abnormal hardening of body tissue. So that was not the problem, except that they didn't tell him anything. So what actually was going on he didn't understand, and that I was an atypical case. Atypical means very unusual. And what did they tell, that he was the unusual case. Eventually, however, doctors did diagnose Hawking with the early stages of ALS. It was devastating news for him and his family, but a few events prevented him from becoming completely despondent. Despondent means loss of hope or courage. Eventually means finally here, however, the doctors didn't diagnose Hawking. Doctors did diagnose Hawking with the early stages of ALS. That means Stephen Hawking was in the early stages of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Okay, they diagnosed it. They found out the Hawkins problem, and it was really very devastating. Means very severe cause, or that was the shock for Stephen Hawking and his family. But few events prevented him. That means that here actually tried to save him from becoming completely despondent. Despondent means what? Loss of hope or courage. There were a few things that saved him from becoming totally despondent or losing his hope or losing his courage or confidence. The first of these came while Hawking was still in the hospital. Means when he was in the hospital, he found out a thing, and that encouraged him. What was the thing? Let's see. There he shared a room with a boy suffering from leukemia, relative to what his roommate was going through. Hawking later reflected his situation seemed more tolerable tolerable means bearable. What is meant by leukemia? Leukemia, that is the disease, a malignant progressive disease in which the bone marrow and the other blood forming organs produce increased numbers of abnormal white blood cells that affects blood cells here. Actually, this is the cancer of blood forming tissues, that means we can call it blood cancer. Okay, so when he was in the hospital, there was a boy, okay, means with whom Stephen Hawking shared his room. And the boy, he found out that suffering from leukemia. Actually, he was suffering from blood cancer. So his situation was quite danger from Stephen Hawking. Okay, and from this situation, he seemed to, means the thing realized him that what his condition was bearable or tolerable. Not long after he was released from the hospital, Hawking had a dream that he was going to be executed. Means here, not longer here, after when he was released from the hospital, because within this earlier 2 weeks he was in the hospital, and that the thing when he found out that he was suffering from ALS, and that the thing was really very shocking for him. So what happened here with him? When he released from the hospital, he had a dream that he was going to be executed. Means he thought that there are some here tasks that he should have to perform. Actually, at first he thought that he was going to end now, but no, he had the dream, and that made him realize that there were still things to do with his life. Okay, and he started working with it. In a sense, Hawkins' disease helped him become the noted scientist he is today. Means here we can say that Hawkins' disease, when he suffered from ALS and when he understood about that the disease helped him to become the noted scientist. Now he is today. That means when the article was written, at the time he was alive. So he is today. That the statement is given there. Before the diagnosis, Hawking hadn't always focused on his studies. Before my condition was diagnosed, I had been very bored with life, he said. What is given here? Let's see. Stephen Hawking said that before the diagnosis, he hadn't always focused on his studies. Okay, he gave a very less here focus on his studies. Hardly he focused on his studies. So before his condition was diagnosed here, it had been, actually Stephen Hawking had been very bored with the life, with his life. There had not seemed to be anything worth doing. That means at the time he felt that there was not worth doing that he could do or he would do. With the sudden realization that he might not even live long enough to earn his PhD, Hawking poured himself into his work and research. But what happened when he understood that from the doctors that he had only 2.5 years, that means very limited time he had, and not the more, okay, life. So he wanted to complete his PhD, so he started his work very carefully and poured himself into his work and research and did his research work. As physical control over his body diminished, he would be forced to use a wheelchair by 1969. The effects of his disease started to slow down. What happened here? Let's see. As physical control over his body diminished means decreased here. Okay. So he would be forced here to use a wheelchair when in 1969, because his physical control over his body that was decreased, and the effects of his disease then started to slow down, coming down. Over time, however, Hawkins' ever expanding career was accompanied by an ever worsening physical state. What is given here later means over the time. Okay, in that time Hawkins' ever expanding career. That means his quickly increasing career was accompanied by very ever worsening physical state. That means his physical condition was or state was deteriorating day by day, but his career was expanding, quickly expanding there. By the mid 1970s, the Hawking family had taken in one of Hawkins' graduate students to help manage his care and work. What his family did in 1970s, they take in a student, graduate student, Hawkins graduate student, to help to whom Stephen Hawking for his care and for his work. Okay, they kept that students for his assistance. He could still feed himself and get out of bed, but virtually almost but not quite here everything else required assistance. Means he was able to feed himself and get out of bed, but for other works, okay, because not more than that the works he could do, so for other works there required an assistance. In addition, his speech had become increasingly slurred, so that only those who knew him well could understand him. That means no one could understand him who means those who didn't know him. So those persons only who knew him, they only understood his speech, because the speech had become increasingly slurred. That means his voice was not clear, words were not clear, and so no one here could understand them. Okay. In 1985, he lost his voice for good following a tracheotomy. Means in 1985, what happened? He lost his voice for good, okay, following a tracheotomy. Tracheotomy means what? An incision in the windpipe made to relieve an obstruction to breathing. Okay, so what happened later? The resulting situation required him 24 hours nursing care for the acclaimed physicist. Acclaimed means what? Well known or popular. So for this acclaimed physicist, okay, means well known scientist, required their 24-hour nursing care. That means he needed someone to assist him because he was unable to do his work. It also put in peril Hawking's ability to do his work. The predicament caught the attention of a California computer programmer who had developed a speaking program that could be directed by head or eye movement. Peril means serious and immediate danger. Okay, it also put in peril Hawkins' ability, means day by day his condition was becoming very danger. Okay, and his ability for what? To do his work. So it was a really very dangerous situation, and the predicament, okay, that his situation was very difficult, and that caught the attention of the California computer programmer. They decided here, they had developed a speaking program that could be directed by head or eye movement. Means by observing his condition, they here developed a program. Okay, and with the help of that was the speaking program, and that could be here directed here by the head or eye movements. The invention allowed Hawking to select words on a computer screen that were then passed through a speech synthesizer. That means what? The invention, okay, that research allowed Stephen Hawking to select words where on the computer screen, and that screen then what happened later were then passed through a speech synthesizer. Means what were the words on the screen that passed through a speech synthesizer. Okay, at the time of its introduction, Hawking, who still had use of his fingers, selected his words with a handheld clicker. That means when he was able to do the things or some movements with the help of his hand, at the time he used a handheld clicker for what? To select the words, his words. Okay, today with virtually all control of his body gone, Hawking directs the program through a cheek muscle attached to a sensor. because there was the sensor which was attached to his cheek muscles, and with the help of that cheek muscles he directs the program, and through that the words here now selected with the help of that sensor. Sensor means what? It is a device which detects or measures a physical property and records, indicates or otherwise responds to it. Through the program and the help of assistants, Stephen Hawking has continued to write at a prolific rate. Okay, that means in a plentiful way. His work has included numerous scientific papers, of course, but also information for the non-scientific community. Means with the help of the program and with the help of the assistants, Stephen Hawking has continued his study, okay, and he continued to do his work at a very plentiful way, okay, or rate, and that his work has included numerous scientific papers, okay, as well as the information for the non-scientific community. Now what is given in the last one paragraph? Let's see. Hawking's health, of course, remains a constant concern, a worry that was heightened in 2009 when he failed to appear at a conference in Arizona because of a chest infection. When he was only 21 years old, at the time it was diagnosed that he was suffering from ALS. That means what ALS means? What? Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. After that there were some or few tests, and so what happened? Stephen Hawking's health was a that remains a constant concern, that means anxiety or worry to everyone, but that heightened, that again rose in 2009 when he failed to appear at a conference. Actually there was the conference and he was unable to go there, okay, because of some physical problem. At the time he was suffering from a chest infection, okay, and so because of that he was unable to appear at a conference in Arizona, okay. In April, Hawking, who had already announced he was retiring after 30 years from the post of Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge, was rushed to the hospital for being what university officials described as gravely ill. Actually, in April, when means Stephen Hawking, who announced there, okay, who already announced that he was retiring from the post, okay, after 30 years, and which was the post of Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge, okay. But what happened there? That his condition that was really deteriorating, that means gravely ill. He was gravely ill at the time, okay, that the officials of university described here. And it was later what happened, it was the good for Stephen Hawking. Later it was announced that he was expected to make a full recovery. That means what did doctors earlier tell, that he had only 2.5 years, but later they announced here he was expected to make a full recovery, and that was really a good thing. And so he became a very famous scientist, and many theories he had written, okay, and with the help of these theories he made the inventions. That is the part of Stephen Hawking. Now we stop here. Thank you.